king, the male ruler of an independent state, especially one who inherits the position by right of birth. To call someone this is bold, to say the least. But once in a generation, one person rises up and earns his seat upon the throne. And in NASCAR, there has been only one man who has been able to rightfully assume his spot on the sport's throne: Richard Petty. The man was worthy beyond words of his title: 7 championships and 200 wins, and generally just leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else in NASCAR history in every major statistical category. But what I want to focus on today is the 200 wins, specifically the 200th win. The number is just so clean and so crisp, it looks unreal. Petty had many contested wins throughout his career, but the 2 wins before Petty's 200th were especially large targets for his critics. His 198th win was found to have been done a little outside of the rulebook. At the 1983 Miller High Life 500, Petty would lead 23 laps en route to a 3-second victory over Darrell Waltrip. The only problem being that it was found that he was doing this with an oversized engine. While fined 100 points, unlike today, the win was actually allowed to stand. Fast forward to 1984, and at that year's running of the Budweiser 500 at Dover, he led 129 laps and beat Tim Richmond by 4 seconds. Only problem? King Richard I had been caught with an illegal carburetor. Once again, the win stood, and would leave most wondering when number 200 would happen, while others remained a little bit skeptical of his legitimacy. Either way, Petty soldiered on, but he struggled leading up to it. He lost an engine, finishing 34th at Charlotte. He finished 23rd at Riverside, 13th at Pocono, and 34th at Michigan. This left Daytona to be the next option for that 200th win. And what an event it could be, as at that time, the Daytona Firecracker 400 was run on the 4th of July still. This would be the setting of one of the most memorable moments in NASCAR history, because on top of the setting for Petty's 200th win was U.S. President Ronald Reagan being in attendance for the race. 1984 was an election year, so Reagan was on the campaign trail, and Daytona was next up on the gauntlet. For NASCAR, this was unprecedented, as this was the first time a sitting president had actually attended a race.
Racing fans.
All right, gentlemen, start your engines.
For this occasion, Petty rolled off 6th on the grid. While 8 drivers led during this race, 2 quickly established themselves as the men to beat: Richard Petty and Cale Yarborough. The 2 would trade the lead back and forth all day. If the blue and red 43 wasn't in front, then more than likely it was the orange and white 28. Then, another person took the lead of the day.
Back at Daytona, and you can see Air Force One carrying President Ronald Reagan as it lands at the airstrip just adjacent to this racetrack, hovering even now over the backstretch as the cars go by.
In that moment, it was official. The president was at the Firecracker 400. Not only would he attend the race, but Reagan also threw it back to his roots. When he lived in Illinois, Reagan was actually a baseball and football announcer. On this day, he dipped his toes into auto racing as well.
I'm just marveling at you and your ability as they come off that upper turn way over there to pick out who they are and what position and all.
Well, see,
that's having lived down among them.
I'm sure that you're amazed by the speeds that you're seeing these cars run here today and the control the drivers have over them.
Yes, I am, and I've noticed one thing already. I've been here only a short time. I've noticed that if you're trying to look at the number on the car, you better look when they're down the track a ways. You're not going to see it when they go by here.
But back on track though, pit stops had gotten Richard Petty ahead of Yarborough. The 2 fought back and forth for the win, and soon the rest of the field became an afterthought.
Car is spun out. Doug Heveron's car is spun out in turn 1. So now the yellow caution flag may be coming out. Indeed, as I look just below us, the yellow caution flag is going to come out. This will, in all intents and purposes, perhaps be the last lap of the race. The rule requires them to solidify under the caution at the beginning of the next lap.
It's an incredible situation. Now, are they going to race to the line? This is an interesting rule situation, Jim. You are allowed to race to the line once the yellow has come out. Cale Yarborough did that. Richard Petty is counterattacking. This may be the race that we're looking at here as they sweep up into traffic. A highly dangerous situation.
Coming down the front straight. Here they are, Sam. They will come across the yellow line just about together, but Petty had the lead. By the nose of the car, Richard Petty was just in front of Cale Yarborough as they came across the line. Now they have completed 158 laps.
Petty had done it. He had won his 200th race on the 4th of July in front of President Ronald Reagan. To say that this was a monumental moment for Petty and NASCAR is the largest of understatements. Behind Petty, his rival of the race, Cale Yarborough, actually went down pit road after taking the yellow flag with 1 to go, causing him to lose second place to Harry Gant. But that was definitely secondary to everything else that day. Petty basically ran up the banking after the race at Daytona to join the president for a post-race interview.
With the guest of honor, President Ronald Reagan, and the honored man of the day who has won his 200th Grand National Stock Car race, Richard Petty. Mr. President, it's great to have you here. A member of your staff intimated to me yesterday that although you are interested in the fortunes of all race drivers, you might be excited to see this occasion, Richard Petty winning his 200th. It's quite a day, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is. I understand that no one in the whole history of racing has ever done that or ever won 200 races.
And you called 4 or 5 laps on the radio. How'd you think your race call went?
Not very good. I'm glad that when I was a sports announcer, it was mainly baseball and football and a few things like swimming and that sort of thing, because I was having an awful lot of laps after I got here when I was trying to figure out who was where.
I can tell you myself that it can be confusing, and it was a bit of a confusing finish. I wonder, Richard, when you noticed that Hevron had left the track, the caution flag was going to come out, and you had, in effect, a one-lap race to the flag for the victory.
Well, just to the one across the start-finish line. You know, you're going in one direction, then when you turn at the start-finish line, you look down into the first and second corner just as far as you can see. And I seen the car sitting on the infield, and when I did, then I just put it to the floor and just waited for Cale to make his move. And when he did, then he just went in the corner a little bit too hard up there, and his car didn't stick, and I was able to cut back beside of him, and then we kind of touched a couple times, and I beat him to the line.
You weren't worried when he went past you?
You what?
You weren't worried when he went past you there on the backstretch?
Yeah, I was worried. I was sitting there for the last 40 laps wondering what he was going to, I know what he was going to do and where he was going to do it, but I didn't know how I was going to overcome it. But what happened when the boy spun, then everything was strictly reflex. He had to do something, and I had to do something. The figuring that both of us done never came to be. So it was a act and a react. He acted and I reacted.
You've been around this sport so long that you may not get terribly excited at the prospect of winning a race, but was there a little extra thrill in winning, knowing that the #1 fan was here today?
Well, definitely. 200 is very, very important, but under the circumstances, with all the presidents that's ever been in the United States, this is the first one that's ever showed up at a racetrack. So everybody's got to go from that, from racing standpoint, and I wanted to be the one that was able to welcome him to Grand National Racing.
Richard, congratulations to you on this terrific occasion. Mr. President, thanks for being with us.
Well, pleased to be here, and it's been a very exciting day, and I join in the congratulations. I even have a conflict of interest here because he's doing some yeoman service in a political sense.
Petty afterwards went down to Victory Lane where he and his team celebrated the 200th win. But once again, it had to be quick as Reagan ate KFC with the other drivers. Petty flanked him to his right, Bobby Allison flanked him to his left. It was a great down-to-earth moment that since has become a trend of the past in American politics. NASCAR would be front-page news around the country. After this race, Richard Petty would race for 8 more years, and he would never grace Victory Lane again. After the 1987 season, he wouldn't even finish in the top 20 in points again. As for President Ronald Reagan, he would win re-election in one of the biggest landslides in political history, winning 525 of the possible 539 electoral votes. Moving forward, Daytona would actually be the site of many more presidential visits in the future. In 2004, President George W. Bush attended the Daytona 500 during a pivotal re-election year, as did President Donald Trump this past year at the 2020 Daytona 500. This race both marked the end of an era for Richard Petty and also really shifted NASCAR's involvement in political discussion into overdrive. But I guess NASCAR needs to stay out of politics, right? Anyways, I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this instrumental race? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, Leave a like on this video and subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content. And until next time, have a good one.